Good morning, everyone, and by the beard of Zeus, what's been happening in Poland? So Poland have come out now and they've said that they have a duty to shoot down missiles over Ukraine. Guys, for those of you who've been following this channel, I identified this back in March. And, the reason I'm saying I identified it back in March is because you've got to look at the little seedlings that are growing among the weeds. You've got to look at these articles that are happening now. These articles that seem off topic and irrelevant, it's those things that grow into the larger scale the large scale of conflict. So let's, if that's on, hang on, can I do that? No, I can't. Let's stop. Right, guys, I'm having IT problems. Where are we? No, sorry, guys. Right, sorry, but now we're on. Sorry, guys, now we're on. IT problems. Guys, I am not going to edit anything out because that is not how we roll here. We give you guys one cut, one edit, and that's how I get more videos out to you. Right, so here we are, guys. So this is an article from back in 15th of June. NATO chiefs reject Polish proposals to shoot down Russian missiles over Ukraine. So this thing's been a long burner. It's been happening for a while. And this guy, Jens Stoltenberg, he said, NATO Secretary General has rejected Poland's proposal that it could shoot down Russian missiles that are in Ukrainian airspace. But heading towards Polish territory, this would risk NATO becoming part of the conflict, Jens Stoltenberg says. So that's what they said back in, when was it? July 2015. And for all guys, and for those of you who who think that this NATO overarching umbrella Article 5 think it's any protection, guys, I've got it down there. I did a video on Article 5 on all the NATO security articles, and I read through each and every one of those articles. And guys, honestly, there's no protection in those articles at all. NATO Article 5, and you're free to go and look at it, and I will try and put a link in the description. NATO Article 5, which everybody talks about, saying, oh yes, an attack on one NATO country is an attack on all NATO countries. Yes, that's fine. That's how it's defined. But what is the action from that? So when Article 5 is triggered, what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to get tanks, guns, people abseiling through windows, climbing up drain pipes and throwing smoke bombs? Absolutely not. What all it says in NATO Article 5 is the Security Council will take steps necessary to bring peace and stability to that region. So let me ask you this question. Under those definitions, if, for example, Russia annexes one of the small townships on the Finnish border, annexes it real quick, they have a fake election, the people vote overwhelmingly to be part of Russia, and then there's no fighting, there's no more violence. Under Article 5, what can NATO do? Under Article 5, all they can do is bring peace and stability back to that region. If there's no fighting, there's already peace and stability. So, what protection is that, guys? Honestly, then people are gushing over NATO, people are gushing over these articles. Guys, they give the countries zero protection. That's my analysis, my understanding and my interpretation of the documents. Please, if you've read the documents and there's other interpretations of that, and if you interpret bringing peace and stability back to the region, if you interpret that as NATO will bring forces in and push people out of your country, guys, if you interpret it that way, absolutely fine. Show me that interpretation and explain to me how that interpretation's legible. Also, in the NATO articles, it says that countries should develop their own security deals, their own security agreements with neighboring countries. And it says that those countries should should protect themselves as best they can. So that's kind of what, where Poland's going on this. So Poland, back in March, they opened this conversation about shooting aircraft down over Ukraine. And it came out, guys, and it was a really benign article, just, a simple pilot. He was up there, he could see these Ukrainian Russian missiles coming in, and he was sat in his F-16, and he was saying, you know, we can see these, and they're on our radar. All we have to do is press a button, and we can save lots of civilian lives, you know. And I thought, okay, that's a bit weird that this is having this has got some media attention, because of course, you know, that's like a non-article. Anyway, I said, you know, what this is going to evolve into. And so let's look what's come out the most recent. Where are we? No, you don't want to see my Gmail, guys. That's what I almost gave you my Gmail. Is it this one? No. Oh, I think I may have lost it. No, there we are. So Poland, guys, this is wild as well. Poland has a duty to shoot down Russian missiles over Ukraine, ministers say, despite risk of dragging NATO into war. So, you know, you can see the rhetoric, you can see the escalation. And I said, this is going to lead to, you know, the Ukrainians flying their F-16s from Poland. Ukraine has been pushing for allies to be more involved in its defense, including giving Kiev permission to use Western-supplied missiles to strike deep inside Russia. Guys, if you've watched our live stream yesterday, we got a couple of questions about this. You know, I said this bit here, you know, it's kind of a non-question and it's kind of a non-article. So I don't know where we're going with that. Because, you know, the Ukrainians are doing this anyway with their own drone system. And the Ukrainian drones are a lot better than the ones that the West are supplying them with. By better, I mean cheaper, easier to produce, and with more capacity. Poland and other nations bordering Ukraine have a duty to shoot down incoming missiles. Guys, can you see the difference now in rhetoric from that article I just showed, the article back in July, to the article, to what they're talking about now? So, you know, back in July, they were saying, you know, NATO chiefs reject Polish proposal to shoot down Russian missiles. Now, Polish ministers, well, they're basically saying that they have a duty, that all bordering nations that border Ukraine have a duty to shoot down incoming Russian missiles, despite the risk of interceptions over Ukrainian territory, dragging NATO into the war with Moscow. Guys, you know, NATO as it is already at war with Moscow. People, you know, and people think that these articles, like I just said, you know, form some sort of protection. People think that, you know, if one little NATO country is invaded, then the United States is going to send all its air force over to, you know, thwart that attack. Nowhere in those documents, from what I've seen, does it say anything remotely like that. The country's foreign minister said, so this is the, as I understand from this article, the Polish foreign minister said this. Warsaw activated aircraft early on Monday to protect Polish airspace as Russia launched a fresh barrage of missiles and drones, with Ukraine having faced some of the most intense strikes since the start of Vladimir Putin's invasion during the past 2 weeks. So, yeah, I'll put the link in the description, guys. So that's, you know, more rhetoric that's ramping up. And this is only going to lead, there's no way that, guys, this is only going to lead to Ukrainian F-16s being flown from Poland. Because once you've opened that can of Polish aircraft flying from Polish air bases and going over Ukraine, and you know, from this article, guys, it doesn't say that that's going to happen, but that's the natural progression. That's the natural mission creep. As soon as this starts happening, you know, you get right. Okay, we're allowed to fly on the Polish border. Right. Okay. Right. Give it a couple of weeks. Yeah, right. We're allowed to go just 5 kilometers over into Ukrainian airspace. Just, you know, just to make sure we've got the a sufficient range. Right. We're 5 kilometers. Right. Okay. It's 10 kilometers. You know, and the mission creep keeps creeping until you literally have, my speculation, my analysis, you know, until you literally have Polish aircraft flying all over Ukraine now on their defensive missions. So the Polish mission will just be to shoot down and intercept missions, because what they'll say is, they'll say, okay, right, what's the point in flying up once these missiles are sent? If we fly patrols regularly, we can shoot these missiles down while they're over Russian territory. And this thing just keeps expanding and expanding. And then you have the situation now where, and again, it's open source knowledge. It's not me. This is not me speculating. This is not me having any inside information. you've got the United States putting out a call for F-16 pilots. So if you're in the United States now and you're an F-16 pilot, I don't know how many of these guys there are, but you hear that call and you're doing nothing. Guys, I can pretty much guarantee that there are well, I don't want to put a number on it, but I'm going to say a lot. I'm going to say there's more pilots, more American, more NATO-trained pilots volunteering for these roles than they actually have aircraft. That's what I would say. Now, where have these pilots gone? Where are these pilots going to fly from? Are they going to be pushed right deep into Ukraine, pushed like on the forefront, right on the front line? Probably not, because there's security risks there. If those pilots get captured, it's a really bad thing. We already know that the NATO have special forces working in Ukraine, because the German, I think it was a German defense minister or something, he came out and he said that. He said, yeah, there's NATO special forces working in Ukraine. So the CSAR, so what is CSAR? Combat Search and Rescue. So your combat search and rescue element is already there, in the context that if one of these American pilots gets downed over Ukraine, you already have that special forces contingent in Ukraine to go and get those guys back. And, as long as the pilots, the NATO trained pilots, do not fly inside Russian territory and they get shot down, who's going to know who's flying these aircraft? You're never going to know, guys. And that is the reality of that situation. So I think this is happening. I think you're going to get NATO pilots flying, retired NATO pilots under the guise of the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, International Legion, or whatever they call it. They're going to be flying from Poland, because as soon as you start opening these sorties out, how are the Russians going to know that whether that's a Polish F-16 flying from the airbase on a defensive mission, or a Ukrainian F-16 flying from the same airbase on an offensive mission? You're never going to know, guys. And a lot of these missile systems will be very hard to track on, they'll be harder to track on radar. That's why I think one of the reasons they're pushing to get these to use the NATO weapons, predominantly the Scalp missile, or the what's the British version? Storm Shadow. That's why I think they're pushing to let these systems be used, deeper into Russia. But anyway, that's just it. The thing, that's what's happening at the moment. You've got more rhetoric from Poland wanting to close the airspace. This is only going to lead to dragging NATO into this conflict. What that means, I don't really know, because I kind of argue that there's no such thing as NATO, and it's just, I think NATO is kind of like a false threat. Like at the moment, the Russian nuclear threat, I'm kind of questioning whether these nuclear weapons work, and I'm not trying to tempt anything, but I genuinely don't see how this has not happened already. But anyway, guys, that's the jux of this video. The Polish are, well, I'll just read it again. Poland has a duty to shoot down Russian missiles over Ukraine. Now, you can use that, you can interchange that word missiles with aircraft, because this will obviously encompass drones, and at some point it will, of course, encompass actual aircraft. So that's where we are, guys. I've been saying this is coming for a long time. Polish foreign minister's talking about it now. Poland has a duty to shoot down Russian, I should probably use this as the thumbnail, Russian missiles over Ukraine, ministers say, despite risk of dragging NATO into war. Guys, absolutely wild times we're living in. I'm going to mag to grid, and I'll speak to you guys